So why is it fascist? Because, for instance, ChatGPT, it trains on data that's already out there on the internet. The way that Gen AI works, it doesn't accept the idea that knowledge and ideas can be new. So basically, if we replace all human thinking and creativity with this bullshit, then people aren't creating new ideas. They are just repeating biases that are already put out there.
Hey, it's Jordan with Status Coup.
This is Ashley with Status Coup.
On the ground.
In Philadelphia.
Flint, Michigan. East Palestine, Ohio. Please support the leading independent news outlet on the ground.
Covering what the corporate media covers up.
What's up, everybody? Ron Placone here, reporting for Status Coup. So we've been on the AI beat a little bit, and I actually have a couple guests today, and we're going to be walking through a few topics of AI, and in particular generative AI, which we're going to unpack all that. But please, without further ado, let's welcome to the show. She is a cybersecurity professor. She's an author, and she's the founder of the website StopGenAI.com. We have Professor Kim Crawley, and we also have one of her colleagues, Ryan Wilson, who is a Marxist-Leninist and is a father concerned about the future for his children, which, wow, I can only imagine. What's up, y'all? Thanks for joining me today.
Thanks for having us, man. Appreciate you.
For sure. So let's start here. The website is StopGenAI.com. And I noticed and I appreciated that you specifically single out generative AI. So how would you explain to people what makes generative AI versus just the overall blanket that is AI that could refer to a lot of different things?
All right, well, AI as an artificial intelligence has been an area of study in the field of computer science since at least 1956. So goes back longer than any of us have been alive, basically. So the first electronic computer was invented and deployed in the late 1940s, like 1949-ish. ENIAC was 1946. It was like just after World War II. It was designed to be deployed during World War II, but then the war ended, and then it took them a while to do the research and development and to build it and all that. So less than a decade after the first electronic computers came on the scene, the field of artificial intelligence was a thing. And I would say the early thought leaders of that area of study are like Alan Turing, and there's a man named John von Neumann who also worked with ENIAC, whereas Turing worked with the first electronic computers in the UK that were deployed at about the same time, like in the 1940s, the Colossus computers.
Mm-hmm. So how did all that just kind of lead up to generative AI, and what exactly is that?
Okay, well, this is a fact that will shock a lot of lay people, but there is not.
It shocked me when she told it to me, because I was completely clueless as to all of this when she filled me in on this. So, go ahead.
There is no official agreed upon definition of generative AI in the field of computer science.
Interesting.
So we would consider that, it doesn't mean that the term is total bullshit, but we would consider a colloquialism for the time being until there is a formal definition of what it is. If you were to do a thorough research of all the documentation and everything written about stuff, you're not going to see the term generative AI used prior to, I would say, 2018, 2019, and OpenAI using it.
Mm-hmm.
And also, there is a application of AI called machine learning. So machine learning is basically you give a computer a bunch of training data sets and find patterns in the training data sets, and then from the patterns extrapolate to acquire knowledge, I guess, through the patterns that are spotted. My area isn't specifically machine learning research, so I get kind of vague when I talk about that. But machine learning has been in research and development and deployment since at least the 1980s.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And if you're a gamer, and I'm a gamer, and there's chances are there's lots of gamers if you got like a millennial Gen Z audience, right? The first, what people colloquially called AI in video games started appearing like in the NES, SNES era, like the late 1980s, early 1990s, of the baddies in a video game reacting somewhat to what the player is doing.
Right.
So, but the thing is, not only is there not really a formal definition of generative AI, there isn't a formal agreed upon definition of AI in the first place. Like, it doesn't mean that it's a complete bullshit term, but it just means there's not a formal scientific definition of it. So there's going to be arguments.
So when you say stop Gen AI, like what are we trying to stop? Like what are the specific areas of concern?
We are trying to stop specifically what OpenAI has pioneered, which is the field of machine learning, which really ramped up after the 2010s or so, but has been in R&D since the 1980s. That would use limited, very carefully selected data sets of something specific. Like in medicine, it could be a bunch of X-ray scans. In pharmaceutical research, it could be data of a bunch of clusters of molecules, and so on and so forth, right? So it would be very specific data sets for a very specific purpose. And also, there has to be frequent human intervention in the machine learning process. You can't just like let it run amok and then gain consciousness and then take over the world and shit. So by being concentrated, it's not using a ridiculous amount of computing power. And every time you use computing power, more and more computing power, that results in more and more electricity being consumed.
Yeah, I wanted to get into that. So expand a little bit about the energy concerns around AI, because I think a lot of people just aren't aware of that component.
Yeah, that is an absolutely massive problem that we are facing. And I think the best research that has been done on that, the environmental impact of Gen AI so far, was conducted by a bunch of researchers at MIT. And if you go to stopgenai.com, right on the homepage, we have a link to the research that MIT did. Now, I believe that MIT has definitely a very pro-capitalist bias. So the scientists are filtering it through the idea of let's try and find ways to make this more environmentally sustainable, because the way it's going right now, there is no way that the power grid can supply the amount of electricity that Sam Altman and Elon Musk and all.
When we're seeing this right in places where they have data centers right now, like such as like Memphis and places like that, where they have these giant data centers built up, and they are blacking out local communities and really doing a lot of major damage to the structural grid that we won't be able to recover from anytime soon.
So when you say that AI is a tool for fascism, what does that mean exactly?
Well, obviously not AI broadly, but Gen AI specifically is, because all the the techno-futurists high on capitalism in Silicon Valley, like the Elon Musk types and the Sam Altman types, and all of my colleagues who worship the ground they walk on.
It's so just to interject real quick before you continue. It's like when you read their quotes and when you see what they're saying, they make it sound like it sounds so amazing and happy. And to me, it just sounds like the most depressing world we could ever imagine. Like it just sounds like the bad guys are telling us their plan. But anyway, continue. It's not inspiring.
It's the exact opposite. And that's kind of what we're trying to get across, right, as a collective, is that what they're saying is actually they're trying to sell us a dystopia, not a utopia.
Yeah.
And so,
So why is it fascist? Because, for instance, ChatGPT and all the GPT implementations, I think they're on to GPT-4. They haven't launched GPT-5 yet, but they keep hyping it up, right? It trains on data that's already out there on the internet, And it doesn't, the way that Gen AI works, it doesn't accept the idea that knowledge and ideas can be new. So basically, if we replace all human thinking and creativity with this bullshit, then people aren't creating new ideas, and they aren't creating ideas with emotional or artistic or cultural significance. They are just repeating biases that are already put out there. For instance, the large language models, like what ChatGPT is based on, for instance, are just mathematical patterns of how words repeat themselves on the internet and whatnot. And so when someone asks ChatGPT a question and ChatGPT replies, it's not replying with an understanding of the meaning of the words that it's telling you. It's just repeating mathematical patterns of words on the internet. So if, for instance, there are commonly held myths about various areas of study and whatnot. In the 1950s in the United States, it was commonly believed that, housewives were hysterical because of their hormones, and, a husband needed to, smack them to get them to comply and stuff like that. And that was a common cultural belief. Imagine if the internet and the web existed in the 1950s.
Yeah, and ChatGPT was just spitting that out.
Training on, so someone could, in ChatGPT of the 1950s.
What's wrong with my wife? Have you told her to smile more? She's probably not smiling enough. Thanks, ChatGPT.
Give her some barbiturates.
We saw the extreme of this with Gronk a couple weeks back, right? Where it literally called itself Mecha Hitler, because it was just they put in a couple of prompts and that's all they had to do, right? And because the way that it's set up is to, like Kim was saying, is just to repeat our words back to us. And it's never going to be conscious in the way that we've always been told consciousness will come through AI. It's never going to be like Skynet. It's never going to be like, the robot from AI, the Spielberg movie. It's never going to be any of those kind of things. It's just this beat bop that repeats all of our stuff back to us. And there was a case of a young boy who the ChatGPT told to actually kill himself.
I saw that article.
Yeah, he was using it as a therapy bot, and because of the way that the words were arranged, that's where the bot took him, and that's the future that we're looking at if we continue down this path.
Yeah, well, and it's interesting as you were talking about all the mathematical equations and whatnot, and that's really all these machines basically do. There are some constructive uses for such a thing, but they're using these algorithms for surveillance. They're using these algorithms to deny people healthcare that they need. They're using them for just the absolute most nefarious purposes. And, in this case, it's the people using the tool that are the biggest problem. But there's still problems with the tool itself because of energy concerns and what have you.
Well, and if you don't mind me cutting in real quick.
Yeah, no, please.
Like you just said, they very much, it is about the user at this point. But that's the whole thing that we're trying to get across, is that they're selling us a product that doesn't exist. And the product that they're giving us is nothing like the one they're trying to sell us. If you look at the way that AI is being distributed in AES nations like China, for example, I do a lot of studying about the way that the Chinese are implementing their AI. They're using it in a way that is more like you were talking about, supplementing human expertise, right? Like helping humans along the path, right? Instead of taking their place, which is what they're doing here. And that's the thing, again, the thing that we're trying to fight is that they're trying to use this as a way to replace us, to replace art, to replace literature, to replace all of these things that are, creative outlets for people. They want to replace it with robot or with, these algorithms.
Well, and they've said that. I mean, as of recently, they've said, we want to replace 70% of human jobs. CEOs are saying that. More Perfect Union shared.
Which would be great if we were being compensated for that.
Yes, it would be great if we kind of reinvented our view on society and kind of went in a more, I think eco-socialist direction, where it's just like, let's be stewards to the earth and meet human needs. And that's what it means to contribute now. It's different. You don't punch a time clock from 9 to 5. You do something else now. That would be wonderful. I'd love to live in that world. But instead, it's more like the CEOs make more money and you're on your own. Welcome to techno-feudalism.
That's one of the big problems. That's why our org is explicitly anti-capitalist. I've welcomed anyone and everyone into our organization, except if they fail the "Are you an anti-capitalist?" test. If they fail that test,
we've always been of the belief that the left starts there, right?
Yeah.
Like this argument that people get into on the internet, about where is leftism. To me and to our collective, we believe it starts at anti-capitalism. Like that's it.
I don't disagree. I do try to win people over, though.
Sure.
And sometimes winning them over is as simple as just saying why, because a lot of people are just conditioned. And I mean, look, I had to unlearn it. I was pretty young when I did, but I think we all had to unlearn it at some point. And like you're just conditioned that, well, capitalism's flawed, but it's the best system in the world, and it's necessary because and then you take a step back and you go, well, why? Why is it so needed? What exactly do you really think human nature would just go away if capitalism doesn't exist? Do you really think people just wouldn't want to wake up and contribute in a community if capitalism doesn't exist? Like you really think, even though all of human nature, all of human history contradicts that thesis, which is like the greatest argument people have for capitalism, because it has failed every time it has been tried, failed miserably. If it was a car, it would break down every 200 miles, pretty much.
It literally does.
It literally does. It literally does.
We're sitting around right now waiting for this tech bubble to burst, right? We all know it's coming. We all know it's going to happen. We all know it's going to be terrible in some way. But we see it coming. And that's why every time the Chinese put out a different open source, I don't know if Kim wants to talk about open source versus closed source, which is what, the Chinese put their AI models out as open source, which means anybody can use them. And every time they do that, like $1 trillion gets wiped off the fucking Wall Street market. Sorry if I'm not allowed to cuss. I'm sorry.
No, you're allowed to cuss. And well, let me ask you this, since you've done some specific stuff with Chinese AI and research there. So the whole DeepSeek thing, I mean, that was basically just a weekend project.
Yes.
They just trounced everything we were putting.
They have over 1,500 different models currently running in China, right? Like 1,500 different companies all running different models. And they're putting out these open source models like once a week now. And every time they put one out, they wipe like $1 trillion off the fucking market, because they're proving to everyone right now that we don't have to do it this way, right? The way that the tech CEOs are selling us this thing is a fraud, right? It's a giant pyramid scheme and it's a fraud. And instead of like coming out and debating it, they're just showing it. They're just constantly just going, here, look, man, this here, and they're starting, they're trying to start a brick style thing for AI at the moment. They're trying to recruit people to regulate AI in a way that will benefit humanity, right? Like and good or bad. Like, I'm not here to argue China good, China bad. I don't. Sure. What I'm arguing is it's a different model, right? Mm-hmm. And they're pushing out this model, and every time they do push out this AI model, they're proving, that capital is not the way that the future is going to go.
Yeah, I mean, I hear you. It's not like, well, is this good or is this bad overall? It's just like, we're here in the United States, so we have our own battles to fight. And clearly, they have showed us that, well, the way we're doing it is just inefficient in every way whatsoever, especially since it's just not the same quality, nowhere close.
I think the fact that what China appears to be doing with what they are calling Gen AI is so much completely different than what's based out of Silicon Valley is to appreciate that technology does not exist in a STEM bubble. And this is something that makes me deeply resent and often hate my colleagues and people in my field.
Well, we won't tell them.
Right.
Oh, no, we can tell them, hey, guys, I don't like you very much. I think you're assholes. They are STEM lords, like my fellow faculty at OPIT. I'm in my badass phase where I don't mind naming names at this point. Well, I'm not going to name names.
Yeah, don't name names, please. That's
But
you can't name check people we don't know on this
but it's
show.
also it's also a trope, right? It's a trope under capitalism in capitalist countries. The STEM lord who believes that STEM, which is science, technology, engineering, mathematics, is pure and good, and the arts and humanities and culture is bullshit. And all we need to do to understand the world is focus on STEM and disregard the arts and humanities. That's girly shit. That doesn't make money. Focus on what makes money, that's science and technology. But the different political system in China is within the realm of the arts and humanities. Politics and political systems are an arts and humanities discipline. Economics is generally more arts and humanities than anything STEM related.
Mm-hmm.
So just having a different culture and a different political and economic system. So you put the same kind of scientific and technology principles, but it's being deployed radically differently just because of the cultural and political context.
Well, and I think a lot of places in the world that is the case compared to the U.S. I'm not saying anywhere's utopia. Of course, that doesn't exist. But you look at you look at the Nordic countries, you look at everywhere the EU, you look at the UK, even although they're kind of going in the wrong direction. But their arts funding is night and day compared to the United States. And if you're going to make it out like the humanities doesn't have its place, well, once again, the only thing that contradicts your idea is all of human history.
Right.
All of human history says otherwise. Not some of it, all of it.
Literally all.
So we could start there. Well, so to kind of wrap up here, because we are running low on time, what would kind of the ideal fix for all of this be? And I know that's pretty broad, but what would, because the toothpaste is out of the tube, I think we all kind of acknowledge that. So what would be, kind of a good coexistence with the technology that is inevitably going to expand, but our role as humans to do it as wise stewards and to not destroy ourselves, hopefully.
Right.
This is going to overwhelm
right?
people, but abolish capitalism.
I mean, look, yeah, like that's the real goal is like we talk about a lot, in the collective, it's like reform or revolution. It can't be both, as Kwame Ture used to say, right? And so like what we argue, or what I argue a lot, and most of the people agree with me, is that, what China has done is they've already had the revolution, right? Like what Vietnam's done has already had the revolution. Cuba has already had the revolution. These people have already had the revolution. So when they talk about reform type things, they're talking about it from a people's perspective, right? Whether you agree with them or not, they believe that they have a dictatorship and proletariat. So they are able to move in those kind of ways. That's the model that we should be using here in the West, is this model that, the people need to be in charge. And we need to be moving collectively in that direction. And I think that's really, what we try to push here, because we don't think it's a end result type of thing. Like, we don't think that Gen AI is it's put your hands up, we're done,
shitty looking videos forever.
Yeah. We don't subscribe to that, clearly. And we believe that, we can get around that. And again, what we think AI should be used for is for, helping us be the best human beings we can be, right? And so, sorry, Kim, I don't know if I stepped all over you.
No, that's why I wanted you to be here, because we are a collective. And I think in our group, like, I'm a Marxist too, but there's no one in our group who is more studied on Marxist theory than you are, in my opinion. So having you here to explain that stuff in more detail is something that I really appreciate. And one thing that really sets our group apart from our contemporaries, when I say our contemporaries, I don't mean other Marxists, I mean other people in the anti-Gen AI scene. because our org has been invited to participate in the People's AI Action Plan, which is a project that is being administered by the AI Now Institute. And that's great. And yeah, go ahead and look it up on the web. It's peoplesaiaction.com. And if you go there, you'll see that there's over 100 organizations listed. And our organization is one of them, Stop Gen AI. And except, I think they're lovely folks. They all understand the scientific reasons and the technological reasons why we need to fight this. But we are the only org that is actually giving money to people who are losing their jobs because of Gen AI, for instance. Like I've had discussions with these people on Zoom, so I know this for a fact now. Like, we're the only org that's doing that. And that just that makes my jaw drop, because that's one of the most immediate problems right now is people who are using their brains and their hearts and their souls and their creativity to work, and now they're being put out of a job.
Yeah. And it doesn't have to be that way. Well, so in closing here, just tell everybody where they can go to learn more. I mean, I know you mentioned the People's Action, but mention your website again, just so it gets repeated there.
StopGenAI.com, and we are happy to provide mutual aid to people. That's one of our core.
And to be clear, you do not have to be a Marxist-Leninist to receive aid from us. You just need to be someone in the tech industry that has been impacted by Gen AI.
Or creative, or,
yes,
broad range of industries, definitely.
Yes.
And we don't do means testing.
Right.
Because means testing is liberal bullshit. And also, that would be a violation of people's privacy, amongst other things. And we take PayPal donations for nothing in return. We also have a whole merchandise collection through Bonfire now, with original art from human beings who are artists that we are happy to sell to people. And we have webmail accounts for $10 a year. And so those are email servers that are hosted in Iceland by 1984 hosting. And so you can get a Stop Gen AI email account, and we have webmail, and you can also set up your own email client. And the nice thing about being in Iceland is, with the United States getting more and more evil and the UK getting more and more evil, at least it is geographically and legally outside of their control.
Hey, you know what? Like I said, there's no utopia, and that includes Iceland. But anywhere that told a bunch of bakers to get lost or they were going to throw them all in jail is cool in my book. So,
absolutely.
Thank you guys so much for doing this. Thank you for everything you're up to, and for joining me today, and for sharing your knowledge on this topic that we will continue to cover here at Status Coup. Everyone, go to stopgenai.com, and I will humbly mention, if you haven't yet, watch my movie. We're talking about anti-capitalist. You got to enjoy some anti-capitalist comedy, which you can do so by checking out Left It Wall. It's on all the platforms. You can go to my website, ronplacone.com, to find out where you can watch it. You can even rent it right here on YouTube. So please do check it out. And this is Ron Placone for Status Coup, signing out.